we got ourselves a Democrat congressman who was robbed at gunpoint in D.C. Believe it or not, he was actually not one of the defund the police people. And we've got these two liberal journalists, one that was stabbed to death, and the other one, somebody actually broke into his house and took him out. You guys kind of picking up on a pattern here, you know, areas that have got a lot of crime, areas that, let's just say that there's a lot of liberal sensibilities in those locations.
Three guys came out of nowhere and they pointed guns at me. I do have a black belt, but I recognize when you got three guns. I looked at one with a gun, another one with a gun, the one behind me. So they said they wanted my car. I said, sure, you got to keep calm under those situations. And then they took off. They recovered the car. They recovered everything. What really got me upset was they took my sushi. But anyway, that's something else. And they did recover
Scott
the
Adams
sushi.
tweeted July 1st, 2020, if Biden is elected, there's a good chance he will be dead within the year. Republicans will be hunted. Police will stand down. On September 30th, Josh Kruger says, the Dilbert dude is like Nostradamus. Look at this prediction from 2020. Wow, eerie. Making fun of Scott Adams for having made that point. And then we have this story from timcast.com. Journalist shot 7 times in Philadelphia home. Josh Kruger was killed in his home on Monday. Yo, that's crazy. So this is actually what this is. He was killed today. Is that it? I thought it was 1 a.m.
Jeez. Wow.
So this guy who was just mocking Scott Adams over his prediction about this stuff was shot and killed in his own home. I think the news is that there was no sign of a break-in. He had mocked and argued with critics expressing concern of a rising crime in Philadelphia.
That Scott Adams guy just has a very, very funny way of being correct. I'm sorry, but somebody's got to say it. Ryan Carson and Josh Kruger, two liberal journalists, two people who actually are on the side of the whole BLM thing, killed. Now, guys, I'm not doing this video to make fun of anybody or anything like that, but just know that I'm also doing this video off script. So if you hear anything like taken out or anything like that that's my normal lingo when I talk about things like this right here. We're going to talk about the journalists more on the second half of the video. We're going to talk about the congressman first. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video because obviously this right here is an issue. Now, that right there may have been a little bit too cold in its actual opening, and maybe Tim there was a little bit cold himself, but I'm going to try to be as absolutely compassionate as I can be here. Nobody wants to see anybody get hurt or killed or anything like that, but still at the same time, you do got to wonder why this is the case. Now, before we get to those liberal journalists, I do want to talk about the congressman because this particular congressman comes from a district in South Texas. He's actually been one of our better congressmen when it comes to topics like border security, things like that. I mean, he's not a blue dog Democrat or anything like that. He did get behind the George Floyd policing bill, but at the same time, though, he's not really and truly that much of an SJW or that much of a far-left radical. But you got to be asking yourself a question. In Washington, D.C., was supposed to be the most secure place in the country as far as city is concerned, where the federal government, for the most part, does in fact reside. Of course, I'm talking about offices. You know, when I say most part, there's obviously federal offices in certain towns, courthouses, FBI offices around the country. But for the most part, all of our Congress is there. They live right there nearby. And the location of where this guy got robbed at should really and truly alarm everybody who is within that area because it's the Naval Yard.
They are getting carjacked at gunpoint yesterday, about a mile from Capitol Hill, and the suspects are still on the loose. Alexandria Hoff has the very latest. Alex, good morning.
Good morning, Carly. And lawmakers are acting with urgency on this. They had a meeting about this last week. Dozens of them live in the area, that immediate area where Congressman Cuellar was robbed of his vehicle, phone, and other items last night. So this is on the mind of just about everybody here in D.C. It happened in a popular neighborhood about a mile south of the Capitol building. Police are looking for 3 males, stating D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department is investigating an armed carjacking that happened around 9:30 p.m. in D.C.'s Navy Yard neighborhood. The victim has been identified as a member of Congress. So the USCP has investigators working with MPD on this case. Injuries were not reported. Detectives are working to track down the suspects. Now, police were able to locate Congressman Cuellar's vehicle a short time later. The Texas Democrats' chief of staff wrote, as Congressman Cuellar was parking his car this evening, 3 armed assailants approached the congressman and stole his vehicle. Luckily, he was not harmed and is working with local law enforcement. Thank you to the Metro PD and Capitol Police for their swift action and for recovering the congressman's vehicle. Now, year to date, 750 carjackings have occurred in the district. In 75% of those cases, a gun was involved. And this is the second House Democrat attack near the Capitol this year. In February, Congresswoman Angie Craig was assaulted in the elevator of her apartment building. Carly?
Wow, 750
That
cars.
Naval Yard, by the way, which is where the Washington Nationals baseball team, their stadium is actually located at, which, by the way, I found that out earlier this morning because I did catch a glimpse of this on YouTube through Fox News because Fox and Friends aired it. I wanted to check it out, see if it was actually a story that I wanted to dive into. I actually read an article on it, looked at the situation, and I was like, oh, wow, was this guy here, this guy right here, who, by the way, is not really and truly one of the far-left radical loons, which is would be very surprising to me to say that. But don't worry, when we get to those two journalists, which really kind of racks my brain a little bit on how it actually happened, we'll talk more about that in a second. As a matter of fact, the follow-up video to this one right here is going to be about something that's going on in Oregon where the liberal sensibilities has gone completely off the rails, and of course people are suffering as a result of it. But still, at the same time, though, yeah, this right here is baffling because this guy is in a certain section of D.C., a certain suburban section where it's actually relatively safe, and yet a few guys were able to show up there, rob him at gunpoint. Of course, he just handed over the stuff, which, by the way, if you're ever being robbed, you probably shouldn't be trying any cute stuff or anything like that unless maybe you've got a weapon drawn, but I'll leave it up to you. I'm not telling you what to do, what not to do. Of course, concealed carry, somebody having a firearm on this, but having it out, of course, could have possibly deterred these few guys, but obviously that did not occur in this case. I would love to hear you guys' comments on that in the description box because, of course, I still, get into it from time to time on concealed versus open carry. And obviously having a firearm in this case would have given this guy a little bit more protection, especially if he knew how to use it and when to actually use it to be able to prevent this. But still, at the same time, it was 3 guys. So 3 guys were actually able to get up to a congressman, and I'm guessing he's going, I guess, closer to where he lives at because a lot of people live in that area. We also found that AOC lives in that area as well. I mean, like anybody really truly cares, but I'm just saying, I mean, it would be kind of funny to get a headline one day saying that the person who is the most in favor of defund the police, most in favor of radical left policies, finds a way to get, I'm just not going to say anything else when it comes to the politician side because I'm probably going to get removed from YouTube if I actually say that. But still, at the same time, though, you guys are kind of picking up on a theme here. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., she's in charge, I guess, of the police and whatnot. Of course, the police were defunded. And as a result, after getting all that BLM money, it's obviously not done anything to fix the problem. Which brings me to these liberal journalists. Now, guys, this one right here to me, this first one right here, this first one here is the one that really and truly kind of gets to me because it seems to me like somebody just did not seem to understand that if somebody is screaming, I'm going to kill you, it might be a good idea to get away, especially seeing how it was that he was actually with his girlfriend. Yes, it was an actual biological girl. It's actually a pretty sad situation. I'm going to roll the footage for you guys. Of course, you're not going to see the actual incident itself. YouTube, I'm not going to do that. There's going to be a header over parts of it, but you're going to hear some things in the background. It's not gunshots or anything like that. I think it was banging on cars, banging and stuff, but it's definitely not gunfire or anything like that. But I do want you guys to at least see some of this, so that way you guys can at least see how it materialized. But don't worry, I cannot show you what actually really happened as far as the act itself because of YouTube's community guidelines standards. Let's go ahead and roll this. I'll be on the other side. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, was Ryan Carson. He was with his girlfriend. You could probably tell because of the blue dress they had been out. And of course, there was an individual there. He was basically trying to talk the guy into doing what he was doing. And of course, things escalated. Now, really quick, I need to say this. if you're not armed or if you're not some tough guy or anything like that, you probably shouldn't be approaching people. Maybe it's possible that, I don't know, maybe he thought that he could have a conversation with this guy, maybe talk him down. Maybe he thought he could actually do some very good things. You know, a lot of people don't seem to understand this, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Now, I'm not saying this to insult this gentleman. I'm not saying this at all. I'm pretty sure that maybe he was actually a believer in the side of, there's a reason why I called this video, this reason why it is, I said at the very beginning, liberal sensibilities, because obviously the same thing is going on in Portland, Oregon. That's going to be the follow-up video to this one here. There's also going to be a third video tomorrow as well, but we'll talk more about that here in a second. The thing is this right here. There are some people who really and truly do believe that they are on the side of good, meaning that they're on the side of those who are in favor of, I don't know, maybe leave people alone, let them do whatever they want to do. You know, he's not hurting anybody. Let him do what he wants to do. He's not bothering kids or anything like that. And of course, you guys have seen in my videos and many others that some of these people obviously do. I'm talking about some of these more radical left-wing loonies do in fact try to come after children, do in fact have very, very nefarious purposes. But you will find somebody who really and truly believes in what it is that they are doing. They actually have somewhat of a good heart or something like that. I'm not saying this person does, but seeing how it was that he was actually willing to go over there, and then of course things eventually escalated, it's very, very possible that he really and truly did not know what he was doing, and he kind of sort of got in over his head, and as a result of this, his life is officially over with. I don't mean to say it in a very, very negative way. This is obviously a sad thing that occurred. But of course, we've been saying this for a very long time, that these cities are becoming more and more lawless, which is very, very weird, because you would figure you would say less and less, but no, it's actually more and more lawless. People are going absolutely insane. They're going absolutely crazy. This right here, by the way, occurred in Philadelphia, but it's this next guy right here that really and truly should cause you to pause. A couple nights ago, Tim Pool had Dave Rubin and Luke Radowski on his show. Now, I listened to Tim when he has certain guests on to see if they're actually pretty good, if they're going to be good that night, they're going to make good points. And in some cases, when he has guests on that have really, really bad takes, like, say, for example, Lance from the Surfs, or when he did the Culture War podcast with Emma Vigeland, obviously, listen, I'm not that big of a fan of Dave Rubin, but then again, though, at the same time, though, I will at least give the man a chance to speak. He had Dave Rubin on the other night to go along with Radowski. And I'm not really truly the biggest fan of Radowski in the world either, but then again, though, at the same time, some people can kind of win you back in certain ways. It's an ever-changing thing where somebody will win you back. Some people will push you away with their opinions or whatnot. They'll say something so completely outrageous. It's politics. It's all drama. It's just the way that it is. However, in this next bit of conversation, which, by the way, I'm going to play roughly 2 minutes for you because it was an exchange that Dave had with Tim, Dave said some things that were actually very, very interesting, and I can say that they're very interesting because what he definitely says here in the second half is something that, quite frankly, I got wind of myself during 2020, during the whole defund the police, and of course during the whole COVID thing. And of course the topic is the Second Amendment. The topic is being able to arm yourself, and of course I don't have time to go through all of the misconceptions, but I'm definitely going to explain to you guys why it is important that you do this. But there is a problem that a lot of people don't seem to get. Places like, say, Philadelphia, places like, say, New York City, places like, say, Chicago are very, very blue cities with extremely horrible gun laws. You can't even really carry one of these places. In some cases, you can't even have one. So therefore, being able to protect yourself in these areas is obviously a bit of a problem. But let's go ahead and roll this because there's obviously a lot to work with here. And there's another clip that's roughly 3 minutes and 11 seconds, which, by the way, kind of explains the whole liberal sensibilities and the whole tribalism aspect that we've got going on here with people, where they don't want to admit that we've been right the entire time. Let's go ahead and roll.
Here's one tweet. He says, look, it's that lawless land of liberals in Philly where shootings are dropping to levels not seen in years. Here's another one. Bro, speak for your block, not mine. It isn't ruined. The city isn't ruined. And just because Larry Krasner keeps winning in landslides doesn't mean Philly is a heap of cinders and ash, no matter how much people say. Like the rest of this country, we are dealing with upticks in crime. The crazy thing is, I saw these tweets. I don't know when he posted this one, but I remember seeing people retweeting this before he died.
Yeah, it's not too long ago. I think they were in August.
Right. I remember when these tweets were going on, people were saying, like, are you crazy? Like, you're not considering what the people need. This dude was killed in his own home. In Baltimore, we had the story of that tech CEO who was found beaten to death on her roof by a guy who only a few days earlier had tortured a couple. He broke into their house, tied them up, raped the woman, set them both on fire. Police knew he did it, and they said nothing. And then he killed again, and then they came and said, okay, this is getting serious. These are the things that are happening in our cities. And don't get me wrong, these things happen, crime happens, all this stuff happens, but it is just, I don't know what you'd call it, shocking coincidence or whatever, that this guy has been defending the positions that Democrats have taken that have led to this increase in crime. He has mocked people who feared that you would be seriously harmed by police standing down. And he lost
how many
his life.
people I knew at the height of COVID in the summer of love, when everybody was rampaging through everything and they're ransacking all the streets and all of that shit. How many Hollywood liberals that I knew that were all day long for the previous 5 years ranting and raving about gun rights, who were calling me and other people that I knew on where can we buy guns?
Yep.
Where can we? I have a friend who would never want me to be named, but like a big time celebrity person who I knew, could get guns, right? And everybody was trying to. It doesn't even matter the gender of this person, but they were inundated with the amount of people, because when push comes to shove, it's a conservative is just a liberal mugged by reality.
I think this guy actually had a gun. Is that possible in Philly, or is it?
Yeah, no, he said in another Twitter thread that he had a gun and a guy had previously broken into his house and he didn't get the gun. He figured out another way of escalating it, even though the guy was standing in his bedroom or something.
Yeah, this is where
I want to go ahead and address Dave first. Okay, so first of all, Dave, he has said some things in the recent year or so that's really kind of ticked me off. He's also not been fully honest with some of his takes, but then again, at the same time, though, he's also somebody who came from TYT at one point in time. And we typically tend to want people to try to earn our trust if they're coming over from a left-wing news network or a left-wing organization. He claimed he got red pill when he was had his conversation with Larry Elder. I'm not so sure that was it. I'm sure it may have been the catalyst, but then again, at the same time, I want Dave to get through a little bit longer before I fully trust him. If you guys want to watch him and you guys want to trust him, go right ahead. That is all up to you guys. But I want to go ahead and kind of address this. When he's talking about stuff like guns, people that actually agree with you in private, this is where it does, in fact, happen from time to time. You'll get somebody who does, in fact, agree with you, or maybe they're on your side. They can't actually say it publicly. But the thing about guns, I want to say this really quick. I want to go ahead and kind of dispel one thing that is constantly said all the time by the liberal media, and that right there, of course, is this topic of background checks. Now, let me tell you this really, really quick story really quick before we go any further, because once again, it's another misconception. I used to sell guns, as many of you guys know. As most of you guys who've been subscribed to my channel for a while, I've told you guys before that I used to sell them at one time. You cannot just walk into a store and get a gun, okay? A lot of people found out during COVID that you could not do that. I had guys that I served with calling, checking on me constantly due to lived in New York, due to lived in Illinois. Next thing you know, they had friends of theirs who suddenly wanted to buy a gun, and they were baffled to find out when they got to the gun store they had to wait to get that product, or wait to actually hold that product, or even look at it. Some of these people never even fired a weapon before in their lives. As a matter of fact, gun ownership went through the roof during COVID, during the riots. I'm pretty sure that riots was the main thing that drove people to go out there and go buy them. I'm sure that COVID maybe had people considering maybe buying a hunting rifle or anything in case the supply chain went completely out. Maybe you can go out in the woods somewhere, maybe kill a deer or whatnot. But then again, a lot of people don't even have hunting licenses, and some of them, of course, are all animal rights people who wouldn't hunt to save their lives. But still, at the same time, though, I'm sure it was the riots that actually pushed them out there to go buy the firearms. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of these people, they got inside the gun store and they were shocked to find out that you had to fill out an FFL form. An FFL form is your background check form. It goes to NICS, a division of the ATF, and that right there is your background check. You've got to get one to get a firearm. I wanted to go ahead and address that part first, because obviously there were people out there who were actually trying to get one who had never had one. And there were also people taking CCW classes in hopes to be able to defend themselves. But then again, though, when you go take a CCW, a concealed carry class, I say CCW, sometimes concealed carry weapon, sometimes it's really concealed carry pistol, concealed carry permit. Each state has different provisions on that. I suggest you guys look into it before you actually get a hold of it. And of course, there are also firms out there that will actually go to bat for you and actually defend you. Of course, I'm still looking more into that before I actually decide to give you guys somebody to go to. Heavy Duty Country had somebody recently he had to kind of backtrack on, but I'm pretty sure you guys kind of already see where we're going at. People are going to want at some point in time need to buy firearms to obviously protect themselves. And in these very, very blue areas, you cannot do that. And to Tim's point, and I'm going to go ahead and knock this right here out of the way before we get to the final section, because I think the final section is the most important thing here when it comes to these overall liberal sensibilities. People will inherently think that things are not that bad because obviously they're looking straight up and just straight through their face. They have tunnel vision, looking at what the hell is right in front of them. They make no decisions. They make no judgments or anything like, oh man, I guess things are okay. I'm not seeing anything that's going out of the way. Over time, this person's tweets kind of show you that he was starting to see more and more and more that, yes, things are in fact as bad as they're saying on television. He may have even went through a bit of a self-denial phase. Next thing you know, he may have gone through a bit of an anger phase. He may have actually gone through the entire 5 stages of grief for all we know. Obviously, the kid should not have lost his life, but still at the same time, when you've basically been crime denying the entire time and then somebody walks into your house and does this to you, there's a lot of people out there who may not feel bad for you, even though this entire thing was obviously tragic. I hate to say it, but what I said at the very, very beginning of the video was something that, quite frankly, Scott Adams has been 100% correct on. Now, I do want to go ahead and address what Scott Adams' tweet said before I go any further. He posted that tweet up right after Biden got in office. He was basically telling people right off the bat that, look, you know, the crime is going to get so far out of control, you could find yourself 6 feet under. He said Republicans will obviously be hunted. Well, we're being hunted, of course, with the whole ones, I got to say it very weirdly, Catholic institutions, pro-life organizations, the government's been weaponized against conservatives. It's just what they do. Here on YouTube, your videos are not going to go through the algorithm because you're conservative. I know there are conservative channels out there with very, very big platforms. They got to start before the apocalypse happened. And, of course, you know, they had a little bit more free reign to be able to do that. But what Scott Adams is saying, for the most part, has been true. Not everything Scott Adams says I agree with. I've made a couple of videos refuting some of the things that he has said before. And by the way, I still stand by. I'm talking about the whole black people thing. Don't worry, I'll try to link those videos in the description box. But it was this next 3 minute and 11-second exchange that really and truly made me think about the topic of liberal sensibilities. Let's go ahead and roll this.
And he didn't want to come out and be like, yeah, but conservatives. I got to say, when David Hogg said, when they were getting rid of the mask mandates, and he says, yeah, but I don't want to take it off because then people think I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
Like, these are the people who would rather allow someone to break into their home and kill them than admit conservatives were right.
He actually tweeted that he was ready to die or something like, I guess I'll die then, or something like
Who,
that.
David Hogg?
No, Josh Kruger.
This guy.
I don't know. I glanced at it earlier. Didn't save the location of the tweet, but if you scroll down his feed, maybe it's there. It's tough to talk about because the guy did just die, so we got to be a little sensitive about the loss.
But that's the thing, you know. So Mike Cernovich had some tweets out recently about how if Biden wins, he says, have you had the talk? Something about, have you had the talk with your family about how you'll be framed for a crime so they can kill you or whatever? And I'm like, a bit aggressive. I don't completely, I should say I don't disagree with Mike, just a bit aggressive. And my response was, people don't understand what happens to a country when they begin arresting their political opposition and lawyers. So I think there's a normalcy bias. People don't want to believe it. And that's why I like to do the time travel test. Go back, insert X amount of years, and tell people everything that happened today. They won't believe you. You go back 6 years and say Donald Trump will be indicted. They'll go after his lawyers. They'll indict his lawyers. They'll start issuing fines and $200,000 on lawyers who argued on his behalf in the election. People are going to be like, shut up. That'll never happen in this country. Mention January 6th to someone 6-7 years ago, and they're going to be like, oh, shut up. That won't happen. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a viral,
here we are.
The viral video.
The mayor in about 72. You guys remember? We'll get it.
Yeah.
But it's a great video. It's like you're watching a competent executive be like, I'll defend the free people of my city, the people who are doing it right, instead of defending the looters and the arsonists and everyone else. And also saying, in essence, we believe we live in a society, to quote George Costanza. Like, we either live in a society or we don't.
But this is why I am optimistic. Look, man.
Yeah, it was Mayor Daley.
It was Mayor Daley?
Yeah, 1968.
Wow.
Because I'm pretty sure the Dailies ran Chicago forever. But look, man, when they're aborting their kids, when they're sterilizing their kids, when they would rather...
There'll be none of them left.
They won't, exactly. Yeah. They won't defend themselves. They won't advocate for the defense. And they will advocate for the machine that hates them. I'm just like, if you got a guy who says, no guns, no guns. Oh, someone broke into my house. Don't worry, I still don't need guns. It's like, well, this dude is not likely to have kids. And I'm not, you got to zoom out. It's not about what one person does or doesn't do. It's about what most people do, and even to tiny, tiny degrees. If 50.01% of liberals engage in behaviors that result in them having no kids, they're going to slowly cease to exist, and their ideology will go along with them.
I hope, but communism's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and also if you
I'm going to go ahead and address the Mike Cernovich part yet, because Mike Cernovich put out a series of tweets. I can't show you his tweets because the jerk blocked me. He put out a series of tweets saying in 2024, when Trump loses, they're going to come for all of us, and that I've already told my family that they're going to come and they're going to take me out. They're going to end me, stuff like that. Mostly stuff that's completely, totally hyperbolic, okay? I don't entertain Mike Cernovich because he really and truly is somebody who, quite frankly, is all over the place. He really and truly is. Can't really trust anything the guy says. The first part with David Hogg, okay, Tim is actually 100% correct. These people will actually go out of their way to be full-fledged contrarians, so that way they don't want to be like you or agree with anything. They would much rather be on the opposite side of the argument rather than admit that you're correct. The crime is getting out of control. It's out of hand. We're back into the 1970s, 80s time frame when it comes to crime. In a lot of ways, it's actually a lot worse. I mean, New York City under David Dinkins was pretty bad, but I'm pretty sure if you lived in New York, probably from 1975 or 1972, all the way through the Ed Koch years, you're probably going to say it's not that much of a difference. But then again, though, there's also some New Yorkers that I've known who live down here now who say that the David Dinkins days were probably the absolute worst. I'm just saying it's very, very possible this where it could be the case that some people, it's like a everyday occurrence. In that case, there people were obviously used to it. But the whole liberal sensibility that you got to understand is that these people that I'm talking about are what we call suburbanites. They're white liberals. A lot of them are very, very much on the nefarious side. A lot of these people really and truly have very nefarious purposes. And some people, like I mentioned earlier, like in the case of Carson, could have really and truly been an actual honest-to-God true believer. Open to the world, their openness, all that stuff there, very, very sensitive to people. And obviously his sensibility is what ended up getting him killed. What should have happened was he should have gotten his girlfriend inside the house. He should have got inside the house too, seeing I didn't have a weapon on him. I mean, that right there is what he should have done in that case. David Hogg basically saying, I don't want to wear a mask because it's going to make people think that I'm a Republican. When everybody's already seen his face and everybody already knows he's a crap lib and he's an anti-gunner and all that crap, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But still at the same time, though, this right here is absolutely 100% real. Look, I saw a small bit this past weekend. Bill Maher had Mary Catherine Ham on his show. Sam Harris was there. And Mary Catherine Ham is not no Trump supporter. Okay, she's not no Trump supporter. Okay, she's one of the very, very few anti-Trump Republicans, at least in the media. And she told them point blank for 3.5 minutes. I'll link the video in the description box from the Liberal Hive Mind about the Russia collusion thing. And as you know, Bill Maher and Sam Harris both have extremely high amounts of Trump derangement syndrome, as she's telling them point by point exactly where the media got it wrong over and over and over again, full-fledged, full proof and everything. And these people right here, who, by the way, would be on her side as far as political candidate in 2024, that right there being somebody not named Donald Trump, they stood there in bewilderment and could not seem to understand that they were, in fact, being told the truth. They were being told everything in the world that was actually true, all the falsities, the things that the media had lied, and these people obviously still could not change their mind. The liberal sensibilities here, it's almost like these people don't seem to realize that there is really and truly bad out there. Of course, many of these people are the suburban virtue signal types. I tend to think of it like the Bleeding Heart. I tend to think of it like the Patrick Bateman type from American Psycho. Obviously not the same person, every one of them. But when he has that little line in the movie where he says, we have to provide food, we have to provide shelter, we have to do this. That's where this comes from. This right here is what it is, okay? These people, for the most part, are already somewhat weak-minded, and some of them are even weak in spirit, and they're even weak physically. They don't believe in guns. They go out there and they go talk to people who got knives on them, but yet the person doesn't like them because they're white. Let me tell you something right quick. Most people who commit crimes do not really and truly care about your politics. They really and truly do not. They will go along with your politics to ensure that they continue to commit crimes. They can continue to break the law. But outside of that right there, they really and truly don't need you. And that right there also brings me to the next point, which, by the way, we're definitely going to be cracking down a little bit harder in the very next video, which is about this issue in Oregon, where you're suddenly not allowed to call 911 unless it's something absolutely life-threatening, like you're actually in the process of possibly getting killed, which also at the same time doesn't really make any sense. It goes back to the whole thing about conservatives having 2 children per liberal household. I talked about this in my BRC or my BRT videos, okay, which, by the way, I got to remake at some point in time. Let's take blacks, for example. Highest murder rate in the country, highest black on black crime rate in the country, highest abortion rate in the country. You're bringing in illegals. What the hell are you doing? You're replacing them. That right there is what the hell is going on here. White liberals, on the other hand, they only have 1 child per household, where conservatives have 2. That right there is where Tim was getting on at. Now, of course, Dave Rubin would, in fact, and I'll try to leave the entire video in the description box, he would kind of push back on this and say that there would, in fact, be some pushback from the other side on this. And Dave is actually correct. There would be. But it just feels to me like the liberal sensibilities is actually getting these people killed, and it more than likely will get these people killed in these extremely high crime rate areas, especially these areas with extremely high murder rates. That is exactly what the hell is going on here. These people don't seem to understand their stupidity, and ultimately at the end of the day, those who do stupid stuff are the ones who end up paying for their stupid decisions. And I hate to say this, but that's actually kind of what we're seeing now. With that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go much further on this in the very next video, which is about the situation in Oregon. I hope you guys stick around to watch that one. The videos are going to look a little bit weird. The video I have posted tomorrow at 3 o'clock, actually 1 o'clock, is the one on the whole Rodney Harrison situation. I made it earlier today here on Tuesday. This video right here is going to be the second video of the day, and the third video of the day is going to be the follow-up to this one right here, talking about the situation in Oregon with the whole, you don't want you to call 911 anymore. Make sure you guys stick around for that there. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new here. Please hit the notifications bell. Leave a comment in the comment section. Share the video. Pass it around to your friends and family, your loved ones, and I'll see you guys later.